Blah, 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 blah. Carrots, peas, carrots and peas. Peas and carrots. Oh, okay. Ready. Ready.
Flipping over the scene to our screens, and let's go.
Welcome, my lords, to the Well-Earned Comforts podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Seth.
Thank you for joining us on the Walls of Isengard as we explore the many works of Tolkien and, of course, discuss life. We're glad to have you as part of the fellowship, as there's no telling where we'll be swept off to. And boy, has it been a while.
It's been a minute.
A minute and a half at least. I think maybe September, October. I think it was September.
Something like
last
that.
We podcasted. Been busy. There's a lot of life change, so we're going to get right down to it and babble like Butterbur for a little bit. So I'm going to check in with my brother Seth over there wearing the very festive Christmas attire. Goes well with his gray hair there. What's going on, Seth?
That's a nice contrast, honestly. Wisdom is shining through. Wisdom is shining through.
Getting a lot of like George Clooney vibe from you know.
Okay, I mean, I'll take it. First off, you said a minute. Well, I said a minute. You said a minute and a half. What is another term for that?
Another term for a minute and a half? Are we
Correct.
already in Riddles in the Dark here?
No. This is just, I'm throwing this out here right away.
90 seconds?
I mean, yes. So when somebody says, give me a moment, that moment is actually 90 seconds or a minute and a half.
Really?
The more you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Wow.
anyways,
Okay.
now that we're past that,
Yep.
phew, man, life has been something lately. I went through a stretch of teaching clinicals 2 days a week, plus working 3 days a week, plus busting through all my classes to try to get to the end of my semester. And at that point, I was still doing coursework, and I was at the hospital for like 58 hours a week for 6 weeks straight, 5-6 weeks straight.
Gosh.
And so it was just an absolute grind. And then I had a bunch of giant assignments I had to get done by the end of the semester, which thankfully are done. Can wash my hands of the semester. We'll see what the final grades come back as, but I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So it's been exhausting. But Amanda she actually has an ultrasound tomorrow, another one, because unfortunately she came down with gestational diabetes. She's 5'2", in good shape, none of the risk factors, but her body hates being pregnant, as evidenced by last pregnancy and this pregnancy. And so she got gestational diabetes. So they've been keeping a real close look or watch on our son, who has been in like the 80th to 90th percentile. And that's a lot for somebody who's 5'2". So she's got another ultrasound tomorrow. She'll be 36 weeks on Friday. So we'll kind of know more tomorrow. Are they going to induce her, or are they going to sit back and let time do its thing based on, the safety of mom and baby? But man, it's been a while. I was telling Amanda, I'm ready to be able to use some of my, I don't know about creative, if this is really, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants doing something like this, but let some of those creative juices flow, get to chat with you, Sam, and talk some Tolkien. I've truly been missing it just on the grind lately. So, but enough about me. How are you guys? What's new with you?
No, I feel the same way. I'm ready to just escape a little bit. I mean, life has been fine. There's nothing wrong with what's going on in our life. Our life's been really good, actually. It's been really fun to see Ariel go through pregnancy again and just see what it's like number two. Like you're excited because you know what to expect, but it also doesn't have the same kind of I don't know, amazement or anything like that as number one. But still, I rolled over the other night and just put my hand on her belly, and immediately our son kicked, and I was like, oh sweet, that's so cool. He's there, he's alive, he's just cooking.
When you're chasing a toddler around, there's something you can't hyperfixate on that pregnancy as much, right. The first child, you're super hyper, every little kick, every little thing. And now you're chasing Baron around. And so I get where you're coming from.
Which he has been, he is the namesake for sure. He is a hot mess. He's walking into mom's room and demanding the world. And if he doesn't get it, he will do it anyway. That is pretty much what his mentality's come down to.
You realize that's exactly his namesake, right?
I know. That's what I'm saying. We made a mistake.
He's walking into the halls of Doriath and just like,
Right.
Thingol, give me what I
We
want. I want your daughter.
right. Yeah, but this time it's like I just want food, or I want Monkey George. He loves Gary's George. It's his favorite thing.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, he's been a lot of fun. I mean, he's just so spirited, so like strong-willed. The other day I was like, I mean, doing all that I could not to like hurt him as I'm just trying to put him in the car seat. He is like arching and trying to stand on it. And he's yelling, like he's just giving it to me. And I'm like, bro, like we're gonna have a good time. Like if we can channel this passion, like I mean, you've got a lot of potential, but golly, it's difficult
Exhausting,
when
I'm
you
sure.
know that they can't understand you and you can't understand them. And I mean, yeah, it's definitely exhausting, but it's so fun though. Still, like even just seeing him grow and like teeth pop up and stuff. And I mean, it's so again, I say it every time, but it's so much fun watching Ariel be a mom. She
Yeah.
absolutely loves being a mom, and she's so good at it. Um, and I mean, she's staying in shape. Like she's going to the gym still. It's like she's taking care of herself on top of chasing Baron around, and top of everything else. I offered to help her with her baking because she got this gigantic order of like
Heck
three and a
yeah.
half pans of cinnamon rolls, and so, but she wanted to go to the gym, and so I was like, well, hey, I'll go in the morning, like we normally do. I go at 5, she goes at 6. Usually, I was like, just write out for me exactly what I got to do. She had three and a half. She had no 4 orders of bagels and then 3.5 orders of cinnamon rolls. So she laid out the bagels. She had already like formed them and everything. I just had to put them on the stove, boil them for a second, and then put them in the oven. Easy enough. That's all she wanted me to do.
And
I didn't realize that the cinnamon roll dough was still in the oven when I just hit, okay, let's just go ahead and
so
preheat the
it
oven.
was rising in the oven.
Yeah, that's where she keeps it, where it's temperature controlled, and which I
Yeah.
knew that, but I didn't. I mean, she had laid out the bagels. I assumed everything was already set up for me. I just like went down the checklist of what she sent me in the text and was feeling really good about myself. I'm like, ah, this is easy, man. I got this, no big deal. And then started sniffing. I'm like, wait, there's something in the oven.
Oh no.
And so I wasted, well, not wasted. We ended up actually using that dough for pizza that night. It was
All right.
interesting, kind of sweet. Like there's like honey in the dough, so it's kind of like like a Bojo's kind of
That's kind of
pizza
cool
dough,
though.
but it worked out. But she was, needless to say, she was very upset. She's like, I'm never asking you to do it again. I was like, well, that was my plan, so it worked.
Oh man.
But
I
thankfully, her clients were very like understandable, and they were like, yeah, that's fine. We can just make another one the next day, and she made them today, and they were smelled amazing at least. But
That's great. I've told
yeah,
kind of just big piggybacking on what you were saying. I've told Amanda many times. It's like, you know, me, you, and Steven all somehow have lucked out with great women that are just like fantastic mothers. Like I know Maddie hasn't given birth yet, but you already know just based on her
yeah.
nature that it's like she's going to be a great mother. And
Mhm.
watching Amanda with our kids and watching Ariel with yours and soon to be Steven and, Maddie with theirs, it's just like, I don't know. We don't need to go down this tangent too much, but it's just like, how does that happen to go 4 for 4? Even Sarah, right? Sarah's a great mom and
Mhm.
David's a good dad, like a great dad. And it's just like, somehow our parents went 4 for 4 and we're all amazing. Like that just
It's true.
can't happen. Dad and mom batted 1,000. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
okay, maybe they batted enough for us to bat 1,000. Maybe I should phrase it that way.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, it is honestly crazy. I mean, I see so many broken homes, especially with like the students I serve, and
Yep.
yeah, coming from divorced families, and then these students have no idea how to have a relationship, and so I think so much comes back to just how to love, and we were taught that really well, and
Yeah.
humility and servitude and um, responsibility, stuff like that. But I think that really influenced it. At least, like, I mean, I think it influenced all of our decisions when we decided who we wanted to choose for life. And the cool thing is I mean, continue to grow. Like Ariel and I are so different than when we first met in high school. And I mean, that's partially a choice, partially just life experience. But I'm just really glad that we grew together. Not
Right.
everybody does. So
Yeah, there are advantages to getting married young, and you're a lot more malleable and you can, mold together as opposed to being set in your ways and then attempting to smash 2 iron rods against each other. It's a little bit easier when those rods are nice and hot and can, be smelted
yep.
into enduro. So
Wow, good transition. I
I got
like
you.
it.
I got you.
plenty of babbling, like Butterbur for sure.
And it's been a while since we've chatted, so it's like it's been busy, so it's good to do that.
Super busy, but we'll jump in real quick. Just a quick Riddles in the Dark, where we got our 3-in-1 Lord of the Rings.
I was gonna say, is that a new copy for you?
It's the same one from last time.
Oh, okay.
It's the 50th anniversary.
Oh, that's right.
Year anniversary edition. Yeah,
that one's beautiful.
So, let's just go ahead and flip through and see if we can find a piece of dialogue, and if the other person can guess the character names and the context of what we're reading. Make sure you can't see my book here.
I picked one and I didn't even know the context, so I don't think that works. I was like, I'm gonna have to read this to understand the context. This one's easy, but I've got one that's pretty fun.
Okay.
You ready to hear it, or do you want to go first?
No, hit me.
All right. Now, said Blank, if only we had our legs and hands free, we might get away. But I can't touch the knots, and I can bite, and I can't bite them.
Yeah, that's Merry and Pippin. That would be the Uruk-hai. What is that chapter name? It might just be the Uruk-hai. But when they're bound and hanging out right before the raid or maybe during the raid of the Rohan, the Rohirrim dudes, as they attacked the Uruk-hai right outside Fangorn Forest.
Well done. Well done. Way to trust your gut on the name of the chapter as well. That was good. I love that. I love that. Just a quick tangent while you're looking up. I love that chapter and where they're just so lighthearted through all of it. And then like Merry like digs at Pippin at one point and he's like, I forget exactly how he phrased it, but he's like, well, now it's time for Master Merry to take over. I bet you didn't look at the maps, but I know right where we are. And they just like banter back and forth in like the direst of circumstances.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And I think Peter Jackson and did a good job directing Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan to actually kind of act like that a little bit. But well, I was trying to pull a fast one on you and pull something from the appendices, but I couldn't find an actual quote enough here. So
okay,
I'll just flip through and do what we're supposed to do.
But let's go here.
Okay. Say not the lords of Gondor, say the king Elisar, for that is true, even though he has not yet sat upon the throne.
That's Gandalf speaking at the Black Gates. Or no, they're not at the Black Gates yet, right? They're marching through on their way to the Dagorlad.
Yes.
Or the Morannon or whatever.
Yes, it is. The Black Gate opens is the chapter, and they are on their way, but it is not Gandalf who's talking.
Wait, really?
Really?
Oh, shoot. I thought for sure that was Gandalf talking. Who would it be then?
You will not find this character in the movie.
It's Imrahil, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. The only other person that would speak with that kind of authority would have to be the Prince of Dol Amroth.
Prince Imrahil.
Yeah. I like it. Hey, we both went 2 for 2. I like it.
Not bad. Yes, this is also kind of fun. Elisar, I don't know if we've officially.
I actually meant to ask that. Are you sharing the name of your next son?
We are 99% sure that our next son is going to be Elisar, and we'll call him Ellis for short. Ariel really likes Ellis, and I really like Elisar, and the meanings of the names work well. And Ellis means peace and gentle, as opposed to barren, which might be a good contrast. We'll see. If it's proven the way that we've done it this far, then maybe we need a little shift in the balance. But
fair enough.
Well, tidings from the Fellowship. Not a whole lot going on out there in the world, as we have not done anything to interact with you guys. So apologies our way. But
yep, our bad.
We did get a new 5-star review that I don't know if I.
Ooh, all right. Where'd we get it from?
I'll pull that up. But in the meantime, I don't know, Seth, did you hear that one of our most faithful listeners, Caleb Linville, just got engaged?
I did. He sent me some pictures of it. Up in Breck, they got engaged. He sent me some pictures, and it was cool to get to meet her at Lydia's wedding. To have a little bit of context of like, all right, who did he just get engaged to? It's like, nah, I've actually met this girl, and she seems awesome. So I'm thrilled for Caleb.
Yeah, hopefully he's okay with us sharing that. I assume he is, but yes, it's very exciting for him. Another one of the Linvilles getting hitched. But I pulled up that review on this is on Apple,
Okay.
Apple Podcast from Aothane is just what it says. So right
Okay.
on par with what we're talking about.
Yeah, I like it.
Is first of all, thank you both for adding to the wonderful podcast about the world of Middle Earth. Hearing you two reminds me of my friendship with my brothers, and I enjoy the aspects that is built around lasting relationships and not strictly Tolkien's words. I like it.
Hey, thank you for that 5-star review. That's what we try to do. I mean, Sam and I say this often, but he lives in Kentucky. I live in Michigan. We haven't really, I mean, maybe see each other once or twice a year on a good year. And this is our time to just be together and enjoy something that we both, grew up with and have bonded around in a big way. So I'm glad that, we've been babbling for 20 minutes and we haven't even started the meat and potatoes yet. So hopefully this is the part that you enjoy and everybody else can just skip through.
Yeah, that's the beauty of instant streaming and stuff. You can just
Yes.
skip on through our terrible, terrible babbling. But all that to say, it is. Yeah, I agree. It's fun. I just get to enjoy the time to hear what's going on in your life and just to get update you guys. And if there's anything that you guys want to share with us, thoughts on War of the Rohirrim, as I mean, this will come out probably around the same time that that movie is premiering this weekend. So I really, really want to hear all y'all's thoughts. If you're listening to this and you went and saw the movie, please reach out to Seth or I and let us know what your thoughts are. I don't know. I don't have tickets. I don't have plans to see it opening weekend or anything, which is weird. It's like the only time I've not done like anything Tolkien related when it comes to cinema right as soon as possible. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of weird for me. I guess I'm just growing up. But do you have plans? Are you seeing it anytime soon?
I told Amanda I'd like to. Honestly, I'm not too thrilled, and maybe we'll get to reasons why in a little bit.
Yeah.
But with her being as pregnant as she is and Evelyn being at home, like it would maybe when her mom comes out and her dad comes out, maybe we'll sneak away, but she might also be giving birth in the next week or two. Who knows? So we'll have to see.
Fair enough. Yeah, it makes sense. Well, let's jump into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast, which is really, we wanted to talk a little bit about Helm Hammerhand, who is going to be one of the chief characters in this movie, War of the Realm. I hope, anyway. Sounds like maybe there's another original character that might be, well, maybe not original, but there's
It's
liberties
like
taken.
half original. Yeah.
Yeah, half original. We'll get into it, but definitely excited to talk about this. The War of the Rohirrim, like it was talked about for a long time, and I was like, I really don't know a whole lot about what they're planning on showing. And so Seth and I went in, did a little bit of a deep dive. Seth went probably deeper than I planned to, which is great. I think it's really good to have a lot of this context. But in order to know who Helm Hammerhand was and kind of his story that we hopefully will see on screen, we're going to back up a decent amount here, and we're going to start with just kind of the origins of Rohan. So in the Third Age, year 1200, the king of Gondor made alliances with the northern men of Rhovanion. And so this was the people akin to the three houses of the Edain. We've talked a little bit about how there's like three different houses, and then there's different regions of Gondor at this point after Elendil came back over to Middle Earth and all that stuff. So hopefully you're tracking there. If not, go listen to maybe our Fall of Numenor episodes. But
Great
anyway,
episodes. Some might say the best.
Some might say. Anyway, in the 2000s, the year 2000s of the Third Age, a remnant of the tribe of the northern men that called itself the Aethaid meant they moved from the valleys of the Anduin to the northwest of Mirkwood, which I think Seth has a map that he might be able to pull up here.
Yeah, let me. I have to share my screen. I'll do that real quick. Go live and then switch to this. All right, we have it pulled up. Are you able to see everything, Sam?
Yeah, let me pull it up on my end here.
So as Sam is pulling that up, what he's talking about is this area right in the middle, kind of right down here is where they started. And then Sam's saying that they moved up north to way up here by Mount Gundabad, the Arid Mithrim. This is like just the very northwest corner of this location, the Vales of Anduin. So they basically just went north after hearing that the Witch King had fallen. So I'll let Sam keep talking, but I'll keep the map and I'll kind of use my cursor to show us around a little bit here.
Yeah, yeah, they moved northwest. Mirkwood, they cleared out all the remains of the recently defeated Witch King of Angmar and his armies east of the Misty Mountains, as you can see, as Seth is pointing out. But these Eothaid, which does not mean horse people, right?
Yes, I believe
What it
so.
means. They're close akin to the Beornings, which is super cool, and claim to be descended from Eldacar, king of Gondor, from Third Age, 1432. So way back early. So they're akin to Gondor. They're similar. You could go back and find some similarities, but they're kind of their own sect, if you will, so own like race. Not own race, but like own uh, ethnicity. I don't know. Maybe I'm messing up
Yeah,
my
they're
words
just
there.
a branch that is long estranged from the Edain,
There
I
you
would
go.
say.
Yeah, for sure. Um, then they have the main city called Fromsburg, and Fromsburg, that's 450 miles to the field of Celebrant, and then 800 miles to Minas Tirith. So a pretty decent uh, ways away, but they've got a decent space here. He is the grandfather to Errol, who is Errol the Young, and he kills Skatha, the dragon in the Arid Mithrim, which this is a really interesting story. I honestly would love to read more about it. I have only kind of had the Cliff Notes version of this, but pretty much what happens is this guy goes and kills this dragon that was on this treasure hoard. They have some really good discourse, as you usually do with a dragon in Tolkien's world. But he kills this dragon, and then the dwarves of Ered Mithrim, who had already like left because of the dragon, said, "Hey, give us our treasure back." And he's like, "No, like I killed the dragon. I deserve this." And so he sends the teeth of the dragon to the dwarves, who demanded the treasure. And he says this: "Jewels such as these you will not match in your treasures, for they are hard to come by." Well, this pissed off the dwarves. They decided to come and raid him and end up killing him over this insult. And therefore, dwarves and the Aethaid, the horsemen, just kind of don't like each other from then on. I mean, the dwarves seem to make a lot of enemies. They're very petty,
They do.
as we've seen throughout the years. But this kind of harkens back to Aemir and Gimli, why they just kind of just got off on the wrong foot right off the bat.
Just immediately.
Which I just finished reading that portion not too long ago, as I'm slowly rereading Ariel to Sleep. Just finished Helm's Deep, and
Nice.
Gimli ends up like sneaking up and saving Amir's life, and Amir's like, "I didn't even see you," and he's like,
Kazad I Menu.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. I think I woke her up when I shouted that.
As you should. As you
Yes,
should.
I had to like get in character and say it, But yeah, so that's kind of where the disdain for one another comes from, that Peter Jackson couldn't really flesh out, but it's definitely there. You kind of see it a little bit in the movies, but definitely in the books of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good background on like how they ended up at Framsburg, the Rohirrim, or they're not the Rohirrim at this point. I think they just, like you said, referred to themselves as the Eothaid. However, where they really get their start was the first king of the Mark, and this is Errol and I can never say his name. I'm going to say Errol. Does that sound right to you, Errol?
That sounds right.
All right, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
Errol the Young, and he was only 16 when he took the throne. So basically how that ended up is his father was out, and I guess there was a lot of wild horses in this area at the time, and his father was out trying to tame this beautiful horse. And with that horse, his father got on it, and it bucked, went crazy, and tossed him off. His head hit a rock and ended up dying. And so at the age of 16, Errol becomes king of this people. And with that, he decides, I'm going to go find this horse. I'm going to go just set things straight with this horse that killed my father. And they tracked him for a while, and they ended up getting within bow shot. And all the people with Errol thought that he was just going to shoot the horse and be done with it, avenge his father, move on. And what's really interesting is he gets that close, and then he like stands up, and I forget exactly what he shouts, but he summons the horse. He's like, "Come here, you." And the horse just responds and comes to him. And he looks at the horse and he says, "Felleroff, I name you. You loved your freedom, and I do not blame you for that. but now you owe me a great weregild, and you should surrender your freedom to me until your life's end. And with that, he jumps on the horse bareback, rides him with no bit or bridle, and that horse is the ancestor of Shadowfax, one of the Mearas. And again, my pronunciation is not great. But this horse is one of the Mearas, which the people of Rovanian or the Eothed, I guess I should say, they had a legend that this horse was brought from the west over the sea by Bema, who is actually Orome the hunter that would go around and didn't Orome have Huon was Orome's, correct? Until he gifted him to which son of Feanor did he gift him? I should know this. I do know this, but
Gwindor?
No. It's not a son of Feanor.
That's not his. I know.
Anyways, he gifted it. So Orome is known for loving and having all these beasts, and legend has it that
he's a vegetarian too.
Legend has it that that's where the Mearas came from. And so with that, this horse.
I think it's just Maris. You keep.
Am I doing the Rings of Power thing? Am I doing the Rings of Power? Ah, shoot.
I think it's just Maris. I don't know. That's how.
See, now you're rolling it. Is Maris. It Maris? Maris? I don't know.
Maris, one of the Maris.
I'll be honest. I know Tolkien was like a linguist at heart, and that's where he got a lot of his like love for the story from. But like, I have no interest in language, and pronunciation is just not my thing. I can barely read. So, anyways, these horses would only let the king of Rohan ride them, and so that's part of why it's such a surprise when Shadowfax ends up letting Gandalf ride him later on in the Third Age. But in the year 2509 to 2510 of the Third Age is when the Kingdom of Gondor, and I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. So this area in the Kingdom of Gondor, right about here, starts to get attacked by a lot of the Easterlings that were coming from the Brownlands. They were from this area right up here between the River Running, which you might recognize from The Hobbit, and the south side of Mirkwood. So there was an encampment here, and they started pushing into Gondor, which all of this used to belong to Gondor up here. And with that, the steward of Gondor name was Sirion, and he was in rough shape. They were about to be just completely smothered, and he knew that they were about to get attacked. And so he sent out, I think he's, what did I put? I think I put it in here somewhere. Anyways, I think he sent out,
riders.
Yeah, he sent out 6. Yeah, there it is. He sent out 6 riders that were described as having great courage and endurance to attempt this, this incredible trek. Like, it's 800 miles from Minas Tirith right down here. If we zoom in, I guess that's zoomed in. If we go from right here, Minas Tirith, all the way up to Framsburg, that's about 800 miles. And so he sends these riders, and every single one of them dies except one guy named Barondir. And Barondir was supposedly a descendant of one of these people way back in the day. And so it's a pretty much a miracle that he makes it. But with that, his companion that he was paired with got slain right as he was passing through here by Dol Guldur, and he was chased all the way up to the Gladden Fields, where he finally escaped. And then by the time he got all the way to Framsburg, I think it was a 15-day journey. So he went 800 miles in 15 days. And in the last and for the last 2 days, he didn't eat anything. And so Tolkien says that he was barely even able to talk to Eorl and explain what's going on. Long story short, he says, "Yo, we need help. Please help us." And Eorl immediately acts. He calls in a council. He says, "Yo, we got to go save Gondor. We're friendly to these people, even if we're not like in super close contact with them, but let's go do it." So he summons basically everybody to where only a couple hundred people remain in Framsburg. And Tolkien says it's roughly about 7,000 riders. So a little bit more than Theoden brings to the Pelennor fields, right? Yep. And I love the way Tolkien phrases this as he's talking about them receiving the summons and riding south, it says that leaving fear behind and taking with them small hope, for they knew not what lay before them, either on the road or at its end. And so they made this trek, and I don't know if they were on, I imagine they were probably on the west side of the Anduin. I don't imagine that they were going to be that close to Mirkwood on the east side in Dol Guldur, but regardless, they really feared riding past Dol Guldur here. And so as they were going through a really, really dense, do you know this story, Sam? Do you remember reading this at all? Yeah. Okay. Like a really, really dense white mist or fog started coming through, and it basically shielded them and hid them from Sauron, or the Necromancer at the time, right here in Dol Guldur. So they came through, went right past Lorien, and one of, I think it was, how do you say his name? Barondir. He told Eorl, he's like, the Lady of the Golden Wood is on our side, it seems. And Eorl responded in a way that I think is very fascinating. He said, maybe, but at least I will trust to the to the wisdom of Faerloth. He scents no evil, and his heart is high, and his weariness is healed. So not only did this mist hide them and shroud them in mist to save them from being seen by the Necromancer and potentially attacked from, the others. So I assume they're on the, the west side of the Anduin.
Yeah. They
would have to be, but it saved their lives, but it also it took away some of the weariness from them. And so, I don't know, it's just more elf magic, right?
Yeah, and it's really interesting too, because obviously this is Galadriel who is sending this mist, because at first they were afraid that maybe this was something contrived by the Necromancer, thinking maybe this is, of course they didn't know it was Sauron at the time, but there's evil that was around, because, again, it's a mist that's coming. Like, that's pretty ominous, you would assume, kind of menacing, you'd think. But I love what Eorl says, is that, like, I'm gonna trust the wisdom of my horse. Like, Felaroth, he's fine. He is at peace, he is at ease, and he's even like more energized than before. And that's
right,
like you said, it's just proof of elves and how they interact with horses, like the elf magic that they have towards horses and animals specifically, and just how, I mean, it's cool that Galadriel even had the foresight that knew that was happening to like send that for them. But then also just like, that's super wise of him to be like, well, my horse is fine, and I trust this Miras to know if this is a bad mist or a good mist, I guess. But yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I absolutely love that Tolkien just throws little snippets out there of like, Galadriel has this kind of power. We're not going to dive into it, but she has it. Just like when she threw down Dol Guldur, after, like during the end of the Third Age, right? Like, she destroys Dol Guldur, but it's not described how. It's just like, yeah, she did that. She's pretty cool.
Right.
So long story short, Eorl the Young and his 7,000 riders arrive right here to the Battle of the Field of Celebrant, which is right here where the Limelight meets the Anduin, and basically rescues Gondor. Gondor was in dire straits at this point. The battle was about to be lost, and the arrival, just like in the Pelennor Fields, completely flipped the battle on its head. And the riders of the Eotheid rescue Gondor. So with that, Cirion and Eorl, I really wanted to dive into this, but this wasn't the main topic of this episode. But it's really beautiful how this relationship is fostered and the oaths that are sworn. So basically, a long story short, he, meaning Cirion, brings Eorl down to somewhere, and I couldn't figure it out. I want to say it's over here by Helm's Deep or somewhere in one of these mountains. Tolkien described it like about a peak in the north, and I honestly didn't spend enough time to try to figure out which exact peak it was, but there's this really hollowed site where only the kings and stewards go. They carry no weapon. They don't speak. They don't cut down any trees. They even let the path overgrow a little bit to hide the path. It's like this really hollowed secret spot. And he brings Eorl there and goes up to the top and basically says, like, do you see this tomb? This is the tomb of Elendil. And we're going to swear oaths of friendship over the tomb of Elendil. And so with that, it kind of reminds me of the Metal Tarma, right? Like how hollowed that space was, and how that's where they would talk to Eru in Numenor. And it's just cool that Tolkien kind of keeps interweaving these themes. And with that, Eorl stands up and he like puts his sword to the air and swears this oath to protect Gondor and be in friendship with them, yada yada. And then Sirion, he's a steward. He's not even a king, but he speaks in Quenya, which is the language of the High Elves that was spoken in the uttermost west. And in Quenya, he actually calls on the name of Eru to bear witness to this oath. And with that oath, he, out of his generosity and his thankfulness and the binding of this new friendship, he gives this whole area of Rohan to the Eotheid, and that is when Rohan really becomes its own established country, if you will, with Eorl the Young being the very first king of the Mark.
Yeah, and I went ahead and pulled up in the Unfinished Tales their oaths real quick as I was just kind of looking. And
thank you, because I wanted to do that, and I wasn't sure if we should waste time because it's not really the topic, but like it's incredible.
Yeah. I will spare my attempt at doing the Quinian rendition, although I kind of want to try. But pretty much he says, this is the common speech. This oath shall stand in memory of the glory of the land of the star, i.e. Numenor, and of the faith of Elendil the faithful, in the keeping of those who sit upon the thrones of the west, i.e. Iluvatar and Manwë and all them, and the one, that's Iluvatar, who is above all thrones forever. That's a big deal. Like, that's a really, really big deal. And as I'm sure you will mention, like, and that's why Théoden, when, Aragorn sexily breaks open the doors, like, Gondor calls for aid. And Théoden's like, yeah, Rohan will answer that because of this oath.
It's what's interesting to me is, and I could be wrong about this, so we have 49 people that have clicked in at some point to the stream. So thank you for joining us. If you're still here, the way X counts views, I don't know if anybody's actually still watching, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, or anybody in the YouTube comments, podcast comments, whatever. Leave a review, tell me I'm an idiot. But is this the only other time that an oath bears witness to Eru? So the Oath of Feanor does that. That is seven sons swear. They bear oath, or they have Eru bear witness to the oath. Is this the only other time? Because that would be an interesting contrast between it only happens twice, and one time is like to the detriment of everybody, and then the other time is a very beautiful bonding thing for the men of the West.
Yeah, I wonder the oaths that the dead men of Dunharrow gave to Isildur. I doubt that they call upon Isildur. Obviously, he cursed them, and that's why they were still alive and or kind of alive. But I can't think of any time outside of those two that Iluvatar, God himself, was brought into an oath like that.
Yeah, that's just my thought. I think that's an interesting connection.
Definitely. Yeah, we could do a whole nother podcast on those oaths and that relationship, because it's awesome. It's honestly awesome. And for a steward too, not even a king, like you mentioned, like that's a whole nother piece in of itself. Like, the kings are already gone. The last king went to go fight the Witch King and just disappeared, and now these stewards are like, okay, we'll do our best.
But they do this oath over the tomb of Elendil, which is pretty cool too. And Tolkien actually says that such an oath had not been heard in Middle Earth since Elendil himself had sworn alliance with Gil-galad, king of the Eldar. So maybe in a sense, like, they called upon Eru during that oath too. It's kind of alluded to, but not directly. So I don't know. It's just fascinating. But anyways, to kind of wrap up the beginning of what the Rohirrim people were, they actually end up settling this land, and Eorl the Young never lost his yellow hair. Sam put in there, which is kind of cool. Like, he was, just, which makes me wonder, were they from, is it the House of Hador had completely blonde hair, I believe. So I wonder if maybe that's from like their main descendants. But anyways, he died in battle to the Easterlings in the year 2545. So how old would he have been? He would have been like 45, somewhere in there, 55. So not very old.
I think he was 60. He was in his 60s.
Oh, was he? Okay. Never do math live, my friends.
I'm actually taking shout out to Middle Earth Mixer and the fact that he already has a podcast on Helm Hammerhand,
Mm.
and so I've listened to that before, and so I'm getting some of the stuff from him as he's did a really good job of kind of like laying out the groundwork for this. I think he did it like last year, but he mentioned specifically like uh, Errol was around in his 60s when he died, but the significance of the hair is because he's Errol the Young, not just because he became king at 16, but because he kept that young
Mm.
vigor, that energy, but also his hair color. Unlike yours, didn't change. It was blonde, up until his
Wisdom.
60s. So that's right. It's just wisdom. You're right. I'll stop dogging on your hair. I'm sure I'm
That's
not far behind.
we do have the
Knowing
same
our guy.
father.
Yep. Yep. Take it while I can, I guess. But yeah. So again, shout out to Middle Earth Mixer. Check out his
Yeah.
podcast if you want. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's the end of how they were established as a nation. What I think is kind of cool is when he was buried, the way Rohan and the Rohirrim did it is they started burying mounds, right? And so Errol the Young was the very first mound, but Fairloff was actually buried with him, which for
Feller off.
Faileroff, sorry, I again
Feller off.
yes, that one was buried with him, which is really cool because he killed his dad. They had this horrible like start. Everybody thought he was going to kill the horse, and then they became, tied together even through death, which is pretty cool.
It is. It's an interesting redemption arc. I mean, obviously we know Tolkien loves animals, he loves nature, and so it doesn't surprise me. But at the same time, it's very counter. Just the idea of that, like if I don't know if a horse killed our dad, like I don't think I'd want to befriend it. I'd be pretty pissed. like, but yeah, all that to say, like it's interesting just the little things that he puts in there. Like, yeah, the horse was buried with them, and that's a big deal. And then now the Maras serve the kings of Rohan, as their horse all the way up
Hmm.
until Shadowfax and Theoden. So,
Yeah.
of course,
Real
Shadowfax
quick.
didn't seem to really like Theoden that much, but
Yeah. I don't know why, but real quick, I'm just gonna jump in here. Felagund in the chat says all the kings of Numenor. I think he's referencing to swearing the oath and calling on the name of Iluvatar. So I'd have to check that. But you're probably right if you're putting it in the chat. So we'll go with that.
I trust you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, Sam. Let's move on here.
Yeah, we finally made it, guys, to the person we said we were going to talk about of Helm Hammerhand. And
It's
so
the weave,
this is
the weave, as Trump calls it.
Oh boy. This is the kind of stuff they're making a movie, The War of Rohirrim, out of literally 2.5 pages of the appendices. From what I'm seeing here. So I'm sure that they're going to do very similar to what we did and have all the backstory of at least of what they have rights to. I don't know if they have rights to Unfinished Tales or not, but and of course they're going to put in their own stuff, I'm sure, of their own characters. But of Helm Hammerhand, you can find in the appendices A of your Lord of the Rings trilogy. But Tolkien says this: of the kings of the Mark between Errol and Theoden, most is said of Helm Hammerhand, but still only a page and a half. He was a grim man of great strength, and so that's kind of his description. But the first line of kings of the Rohirrim lasted for 249 years until he came along. He is the ninth king, Helm Hammerhand, third age, 2,758. But he's ruling the realm and things are going okay. He's got a council of people who kind of come in and out. He'd have meetings to just kind of check up on the people, check up on how his realm is doing. And this guy comes to his council, and from what I understand is this guy's name is Freka. He's a rich and powerful man, but he was on the council of the king, but he kind of came and went as he wanted to. So the king would call a council and he may or may not show up, depending on if he just decided if it was worth it to him or not. So again, a rich and powerful man, they just kind of do whatever they want to do. This guy's no different. But he supposedly has these wide lands on both the sides of the river of Adorn, and he claimed to be a descendant from King Freywine, the fifth king of the Mark. Yet he was said to have a lot of like Dunlendine blood, and again, there's been a lot of back and forth between the Dunlenders and the Rohirrim. They don't like each other. The Dunlendings, that's a hard one to do again. Dunlendings,
Yep.
they had dark hair. They had like the dark brunette hair as opposed to the blonde hair of the Aethaid or the Rohirrim. So he also had kind of darker hair, so he would claim to have this descendants from King Freywine, but you kind of look at him, you're like, you don't really look like that. But again, he decides to come to this council because he has kind of ulterior motives, and so they get talking, and it's a really, really funny dialogue. I'm actually gonna. I have some
Why you
notes in
look
the
that
top
up?
here, but
Yeah, while you look that up, I'm going to jump in here for just a second.
yeah,
Freka is described as attending these councils only when it pleased him because he paid little heed to the king. And so Freka, just doesn't really respect Helm Hammerhand. Well, I guess he wasn't really Hammerhand just yet. Doesn't respect King Helm. So for him to show up kind of tells you, like Sam said, there's our ulterior motives here. And real quick, we're looking at the map. This is the river Adorn right here, just south of the fords of Eisen and the river Eisen. And so he supposedly had taken up quite a bit of land here. And Edoras, which is the Metasild, which is the kind of the throne area capital, thank you, of Rohan, is kind of across the mountains here a little bit. So you can see how you have to go through the gap of Rohan to get there. Apologies to our audio listeners that don't have the map that I'm showing. It really helps bring context when you have locations, but you can see why. I mean, they're pretty far apart and there's kind of a mountain, range in the middle of them. You can see why they didn't see each other much, but I'll let Sam carry away. But it just makes sense why they don't really see each other much. And then for Freka to kind of take heed of himself more so than the king.
Yeah, definitely. And Tolkien also mentions that Helm didn't really even trust this guy to begin with, but he also called him to his councils. Freka came whenever he wanted to, like we mentioned.
Yeah.
But to one of these councils, Freka rode with many men, and he asked the hand of Helm's daughter for his son Wolf.
What was her name?
Pause there for a second. Wolf.
No. The Helm's daughter. What's her name?
We don't know.
But they're making a movie about her.
I was gonna say let's pause and talk about that. So, yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Is it Hela? Is what they're calling her?
Honestly, I don't know.
I think it's Hela or something like that. But yeah, so from the trailer, it seems like a lot of the movie is going to be on her. When we don't that's it. We don't. I mean, you read the rest of it. There's really nothing else that talks about his daughter. She's not named, which I'm not saying that was a good move by Tolkien. Maybe he should have fleshed that out a little bit, but that's apparently where they're going with the movie. Again, we don't know until we see it. And so,
I don't know. I'm not holding out much hope, but they better make Helm Hammerhand the center focus, and whatever what'd you say? I don't know. Hela, whatever her name is. Was it Hera? I don't know.
Maybe it's Hera.
I don't know. Whatever her name is, if they make her the center figure, it's just like, can we just stop with the and this is Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens again. And so it's like,
yeah.
It just tells you that you cannot make lore accurate movies in today's world, especially one that is dominated by men, being like 80% of the characters in Lord of the Rings. We don't have equal representation. Like, we don't need that. I wish that they would just stop making stuff until they can make it lore accurate.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. Again, I'm going to hold out hope that it isn't all about her, and that, I guess you have to put her in it. Like, she's the reason that stuff's about to go down. But so I'm fine with, you giving her a name and utilizing her as a character to, fill in some dialogue and to have some more meaning, make it more powerful. But still, if she is the entire movie, that's going to be just bad.
It would be horrible. And I will say, I do think it's okay for her to be a little bit of a warrior princess, in that Eowyn even says, like, those of us who, how'd she phrase it? Those of us who couldn't wield a sword could still die upon them. Like, she's speaking
long ago.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm okay with it to some extent, but if she is a complete Galadriel, like from Rings of Power, where it centers around her and she's just better than everybody else, and it just doesn't make sense in the story, it's just going to ruin the whole thing.
Yeah. Again, we'll see. This podcast will come out around about the same time people are seeing the movie. So again, please give us your thoughts on
Yes.
what you think. Even if it is all about her and it's a really well done movie, you really enjoyed it, we'd love to hear that. Or if you just want to gripe about it, we are here to welcome that with open arms.
So I think what everybody listening, and 56 people have clicked in on live on X here. We need 56 5-star reviews telling us how we're right or wrong about the movie. I don't care. As long as it's a 5-star review and you share it.
Sure.
Give us your opinion on the movie. Let us know, was it great? Was it terrible? Am I an idiot? Probably. But hey, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Seems to be a theme. Seth's an idiot. It's like the Jim Carrey Grinch. I'm an idiot.
You're an idiot.
It's good. We just watched that the other night.
Oh, I can't wait. We're gonna watch it soon.
It just speaks to me. You know, I was a Grinch for a long time, and so it speaks to me. But anyway, all right, back to the story. We're gonna get to it because this is where things really heat up. So Freka comes and he pretty much says, "Hey, I want your daughter to marry my son Wolf," which cool name, spelled W-U-W-U-L-F. But Wolf. But I love how Helm responds here. He goes, "You have grown big since you were last here, but it is mostly fat, I guess." And men laughed at that, for Freka was wide in the belt.
He's been really enjoying all the food and kind of ruling over his own people, and he's just not somebody to be respected in Helm's mind.
No, he's not been taking care of himself. Doesn't appear to be. So,
this just goes to show people. This just goes to show, get in shape. You don't.
Oh yeah.
You don't get respected if you've become wide in the belt. So like, hit the gym, hit the diet, get yourself straight, and then maybe Helm will respect you. Don't become wide in the belt.
Yeah, or else it's gonna end poorly, as we'll see. So Freka, obviously very offended, very upset, embarrassed even. Everyone's laughing at his big belly, I guess. And so he fell in a rage and reviled the king and said this at the last: "Old kings that refuse a proffered staff may fall on their knees." He's saying, like, you know, what do you know? You're an old king. You would just topple over. Like, you got nothing, man. Like, you're washed.
Can you explain what a proffered staff is to me, though? I meant to Google it, I just didn't have time. But I was like, I read that and I was like, what exactly is he trying to say here?
I think, I mean, I could be completely wrong. Maybe you should look it up while I'm trying to think of my answer. But I assume it's like, you know, something to lean on. Like, this is going to help you. Like, he says, refuse a proffered staff. So if you don't take this thing that's going to help you stand up, you are going to fall down onto your knees, is kind of what he's saying. Is my understanding. A proffered is maybe like a cane or like a required staff.
So according to Perplexity, which I've ranted on this before, Perplexity is far better than Google. Get rid of Google, use Perplexity. Anyways, the term proffered is...
He doesn't have any opinions at all, so that's very mild. No,
very mild. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Just use Perplexity. Get rid of Google. In the past tense of the verb proffer, which means to offer or present something to someone, typically in a formal or polite manner, it can refer to both tangible and intangible concepts, such as advice or opinions. So I'm going to proffer you to use Perplexity.
No free ads. Come on in. No, that's a great use of the word, I guess. I'm gonna start using that now.
Proffered. Yeah, I guess so he's basically saying, like, I'm here to rescue you. In a way.
I guess, yeah. But how does Helm respond, Seth?
Oh, I like it the way he says. He basically tells Freka, like, hey, chill out, bro. Like, we don't fight in the king's halls. Like, we're gonna finish our council. Whatever you're talking about is of little use for me. And then after the council, he says, all right, let's step outside. You know, like, you want to take this outside? Let's take this outside of the king's halls.
Settle this like men.
Yeah, let's settle this like men, although he kind of sucked, we'll say. But he gets out there and he tells all his men to leave him, and he tells all of the Dunlendings to leave. And then he basically looks at him and he's like, now Dunlending, you've got me alone and unarmed. What of it? And then he says, he looks straight at Freka and he goes, your folly has grown with your your belly. You talk of a staff. If Helm dislikes a crooked staff that is thrust upon him, he breaks it. And then he just like,
That's so
boom.
cool. Yeah.
And
That's so cool.
I just love that. He's like, if he doesn't like it, he breaks it. And he punches him, which I don't know. I don't know if it's a sucker punch, but kind of is. Like, you kind of, maybe he should have expected that it was coming, considering he asked him to step outside. But
yeah, and he's looking right at him. Like, it's not from the back.
yeah.
You assume I don't know. You assume a fight's about to go down. Maybe. I don't know.
So, anyways, he just smacks him, just clocks the dude. And he fell over, and I forget how Tolkien phrases it exactly, but he hits him so hard that he's like stunned, and he falls over and dies soon or shortly after.
Yeah, it says, with that, he smote Freka with such a blow with his fist that he fell back, stunned, and died soon after.
Oh, I love it. Like, that is speculated how he got the name Hammerhand. So it's kind of
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's not necessarily recorded, why he got the name Helm Hammerhand, but you drop Freka with one punch and kill him. I think he's got an intracranial hemorrhage going on. Like, he did work with that fist, right?
Don't even know what that means, but yeah, for sure.
So, anyways, after he basically just takes out Freka, he names Wolf, Freka's son. He names him and all their kin as like enemies to the king. And so they take off, Wolf and everybody, they take off back to Dunland. So this is all happening around Edoras here. So they take off through the Gap of Rohan and back up to Dunland. And this is where they chase them and run them out, basically, so that they want nothing more to do with Wolf or their people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so at this point, then this is when Wolf is like, okay, well, my dad just died, and at the hands of this Helm guy, I am going to do something about this. And so he actually invades Rohan with the help of these Dunlendings. So again, you go back to like the idea that Freka was part Dunland, Dunling, like that's what Helm calls him, like, look, you Dunlending. Obviously, now Wolf is using the Dunlendings to attack Rohan. So either he just riled them up and they decided to join them, or they were already in kind of cahoots anyway because of the lineage, all that to say.
Yeah.
But they joined with the enemies of Gondor at the mounts of Lefnui and Eisen. And so they invaded Rohan, they took Edoras, and Wolf sat on Meduseld, calling himself king. The Golden Hall of Meduseld. He's sitting there and calling himself king, and he drives Haleth. He drives Helm back to which is considered Helm's Deep, is where they ended up going. But just a interesting aside, Haleth, Helm's eldest son, fell defending the doors, and
the doors of
that's
Edoras.
the name. The Doors of Edoras, yeah. But that's the name that the like really young guy has in the movies when Aragorn's talking to. He's like, "What's your name?" I'm Haleth, son of Hamamoon, or something like that.
I think it's Hama, isn't it?
Maybe. Yeah. It is Haleth, son of Hama. Which is, it's interesting that he, like, Peter Jackson just kind of threw that in there as like a name that would have been recognizable to those who know the lore. But
I did make another note. That's really interesting, how the names get recycled. But I did kind of make another note, like the House of Haleth, which was one of the three houses of the Edain. But Haleth was a woman. And so it's interesting how throughout the, that's the First Age, thousands of years ago, how now that name has stuck around, but now it's a like a prince's name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
And so, I do think it's important to mention real quick that when Wolf invaded, he also invaded with the enemies of Gondor, is what was said. So I assume, coming from over here again in the Brown Lands and everything, that some Easterlings or Wainwriters or something like that joined with joined with Wolf to help overthrow Helm at Edoras.
Yeah, yeah. So Helm, I said detreats. He retreats.
Retreats.
He retreats back to what would be called Helm's Deep. This fortress, and the long winter, as Tolkien calls it, is what was soon to begin after they went there. And so this is a really sucky situation for Helm and his people. They're not only have been fighting for a long time, but now they're stuck in Helm's Deep, and they are running out of food. They're in this long winter. It's cold. People are dying from, obviously hunger, sickness, all that kind of stuff. And so things are just looking really, really bleak for Helm and everybody else. And so he decided to kind of take things into his own hands after actually. I want to go back here because it said, here's Hama, his younger son. Yeah, so sorry, I apologize. I'm kind of rambling here, but
You're good.
there is Hama as well as Haleth, both sons of Helm. So that's interesting too. That in Peter Jackson's versions, Haleth was the son of Hama, which I don't know, it's kind of cool. Maybe Hama had a son like that too. But anyway,
Well, I think Hama is the door warden of Theoden, right?
Yeah.
So it could work.
Which, yeah, if Hama died defending the doors, and he's named Hama in the movies too. Because I only know of Gambling in the book. I don't think Hama's actually a character in the books. But
isn't he the door warden? Isn't Gambling just the old guy at Helm's Deep? I guess I could be wrong. I'd have to look it up. Anyways, yeah.
It's 9:45 in the evening. I'm usually
bedtime was an hour ago.
Exactly. But all that aside, so Hama, the king's younger son, decided he was going to lead a sortie and a foray. I assume like that's a band of people going out in the snow to try to fight, to also bring back provisions, but they were lost in the snow. So it appears that he that his son is, so now both his sons are dead, and so he's just sulking in the cold Helm's Deep, and he's just kind of getting angry. Tolkien says he grew fierce and gaunt because of the famine and the grief. But so he decides to kind of take things into his own hands, and he actually goes.
I see what you did there.
Hey, yeah,
I see what you did. You didn't mean to, but you did it anyways.
It just rolls off me now. It's
the dad in you.
Yeah. He decides to take things into his own hands, and he decided to go out on his own with just his warhorn. He didn't take any weapons, for there was kind of like a belief that if he didn't have a weapon, then no weapon would pierce him or bite him, as it was said. But so he would go through, and he would break through the Dunlending ranks, and he's clad in white, stalking people like a snow troll, slaying them with his bare hands. He would just, I don't know how is he punching him in the face again? Is he breaking their necks? Is he like ripping them in half? I don't know. Seems like this guy had some brute strength to him, kind of.
Can we just like take a minute to dissect what he just said? Clad in white, stalking men like a snow troll, slaying them with his bare hands. Like that is so cool. How freaking cool is that?
And this guy's got nothing to lose. His sons are dead. Like he's hungry. He hasn't eaten anything, so he's hangry. It gives you some more power, I guess. And he's just going at it. And this obviously caused a bunch of dread between the Dunlendings. There was fear anytime they heard the horn in the distance, because he would blow his horn and then he would go and kill some folks. And that terrified the Dunlendings. Every time they heard the horn, it would freak them out. But unfortunately, during one of the nights of his sorties, Helm, he dies, possibly from famine, maybe because he just hadn't.
I think he froze to death.
Well, Tolkien also said that if he couldn't find anything to eat, he just ate the guys he killed. So
well,
maybe he was fine,
that was a rumor. He said that it was. I mean, let's be real here. He may or may not have been a cannibal, but it just kind of goes with the legend that is Helm Hammerhand.
Yeah.
Like people are turning him into something in their heads because he just sneaks into their camp and kills people, in the middle of the snow, in the middle of the night by himself with his bare hands. Like, I think it's just part of a legend. I doubt that he actually did.
No.
He was kind of crazy.
he was pretty crazy. I wouldn't be surprised. There was no other sustenance. How else would he? Anyway, he may or may not have eaten people that he killed. But so one of these nights he ends up actually dying, probably from freezing to death or what have you. But this is again the long winter, and so it was 5 months that he was buried under the snow, and everyone was like looking for him, but Hama was gone, and uh, Helm was gone, and so now they're like, okay, what's going on? But one night, the men that same night they heard the horn blowing, but Helm did not return. So that was kind of the notion of okay, something's up here. Uh, but again, it's heard. The legend of Helm Hammerhand continues that you can still kind of hear the horn of the Rohirrim, and I
Which
think that's kind of what they were. No, go ahead. I think you were about to say whatever.
yeah, I might have been gonna say the same exact thing, but like when Gimli and the Two Towers play, like
Yep,
blows into that horn right before Theoden and Aragorn and everybody just does that last ditch cavalry charge out of the gates there. I think that's supposed to be like Helm's horn, and the way Peter Jackson did that with Gimli blowing into it and just the deep reverberation where it like the meme, like you can't hear a picture and then it's a picture of something that's like
yeah,
the sounding, like to me that is that picture. Like you can't hear a picture and then it's that. Like Peter Jackson did such a good job. So I mean, if that is kind of what Tolkien was getting at, like you can see why that is such just an announcement of you're gonna die, somebody's gonna die, I'm coming to get you.
And I think even Théoden says, like before they charge, at least in the movies. I just read The Helm's Deep, and I don't think he says it in the book, but in the movies he says, "And the horn of Helm Hammerhand will sound in the deep one last time."
Yeah, he says
Before
that
they
in the
ride out.
movies. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a really cool connection to. I mean, Peter Jackson would have known all this stuff, and so it gives me hope for what he's about to give us in this movie, maybe. But
it's just
he's
not
not
allowed in
completely
2024, man.
directing it. You're right. You're right. Maybe not. But anyway, so all that to say, Helm was found 5 months later. Just he was. Tolkien said he was just standing. Where was it?
He says like his knees were unbent, I believe is how he phrases it.
Yeah, yeah. It was like he died with, I mean, honor and dignity, like somehow. Yeah, here we go. It says they saw a white figure standing still on the dike, alone, for none of the Dunlendings dared come near. There stood Helm, dead as stone, but his knees were unbent. And then that's where it says like, yeah, but men say they hear the horn was still heard at times in the deep, and the wrath of Helm would walk among the foes of Rohan and kill men with fear. So
That's pretty cool.
thus ends the life of Helm Hammerhand. But yeah, just a stud if there ever was one.
Just an absolute stud. I mean, was he a good guy?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. But it kind of embodies like I don't know, you have the Gondorian line from the Dunedain and they're like super royalty and elegant and dignified. And then you have the Eotheid, which are, they're horse people from up in the Vales of Anduin, like there is a very big distinction between the two not races, but the two countries of men. Yeah. And to me, it's like I couldn't really see this story belonging to anybody from Gondor or Arnor or anywhere like that. I just don't see it. But it makes sense. It fits the Rohirrim. Like just the feel that you get reading about the Rohirrim. It's like, yeah, I could see how this is one of their stories.
Yeah, for sure.
So at this point, this is where, Wolf is still in charge of Edoras. He's still ruling over Rohan. He claims the kingship as his own. And this is actually when Gondor is able to come to the rescue, and they come charging out. And is it Frealoth is the son of Helm's sister. So with the death of Helm, he was the ninth king of the first line, and that brought an end to the first line of kings of Rohan. And so Frealoth, his sister's son, joins together with Gondor, defeats Wolf, and restores the kingship to the Rohirrim. And which is interesting is Theoden is, I don't remember how many kings he is, but he's also the last of that line. And then Eomer is of the new line. Kind of the same type of thing
Yeah,
happens. So what's
passing over.
interesting is they bury, we kind of alluded to this with Errol the Young, they bury their kings instead of like in stone and these giant, beautiful tombs. They just bury them in mounds, and they count the mounds. They bury them next to each other. And Helm gets buried as, the last king of this first line, and he gets buried, and the Symbolmine, how do you say it? Symbolmine. Help me out here. The flower.
I just wanted to see you try to find.
Ah,
I've heard Symbolman. Yeah,
symbol
Symbolman.
Symbolman, whatever, the white flower that grows on the mounds of the kings. Tolkien actually says that this, let me see, you might have the actual quote from it, but he basically says that it grew most thickly over Helm's tomb or his mound to make it look like it was still covered in snow, which I think is such a cool callback to like the life that he lived and the legend that is Helm Hammerhand. Even his tomb is covered in snow all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly what it said. Yeah, that's so cool. It's the small details that you just wouldn't think about. And this is just such a side story too. Like
Yeah.
it's a tiny little excerpt in where he's just kind of putting together all the ages and the years of his incredible vast world, and yet he takes time to be like, oh, but yeah, also like his tomb is gonna have the most white flowers on there to make it look snow clad because of this and this and this and this. Like he just kind of crazy.
Yeah. It, like Sam said, it's just the little details that are pretty remarkable. A lot of people get bogged down by it. Oh, why does Tolkien describe blah, blah, blah? And they just go off. And it's like, it's because you don't understand. Like, I don't know how to phrase this other than when you appreciate it, you appreciate it. But if you don't understand the depth, it seems meaningless. But I don't know that Tolkien wrote anything in this legendarium that's meaningless. He might have, who knows? But like everything was so intentional, and it was his life's work, that even something as simple as white flowers growing on the grave of the ninth king of the first line of Rohan on a side story in the appendices is focused in on. It's a beautiful thing. It is.
It really is, and I'll just finish that. We can have any more dialogue we need to about this, but the interesting way that like kind of this story finishes, but also continues on for Rohan is that Freyalaf was once he was crowned. That's when Saruman appeared, and he was bringing gifts and speaking great praise of the valor of the Rohirrim, and all thought him of a welcomed guest. And so this is like, ooh, this is the beginning of the long planted seed that we end up seeing with Theoden and Saruman. Obviously, why not trust Saruman? He's been so good to us, giving all these gifts and talking good about us, and so
Yeah, and I
uh-oh.
think Tolkien even says at the end of that, it was like he might have meant it sincerely at the beginning. And so
Mm,
maybe those gifts were, legit, like you're saying, like the Rohirrim had a
sure.
reason to trust him. And Baron, believe it or not, I think it's kind of fun, was the steward of
Yeah.
Gondor at the time. And so Baron and Freyalaf, the king of Rohan, both of them were in agreement. Like, oh yeah, you can have Isengard. Here are the keys of Orthanc. Enjoy. We have an ally to watch over the gap of Rohan for us.
Which the dude was technically like an angel, of course. Why not? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. But those of you listening, it's not the same Baron as Baron and Luthien. This is thousands and thousands and thousands of years later. So
Again, recycled
that's
names.
just
I
confusing.
love how Tolkien does that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Well, there ends our retelling, rendition, excerpt, exploration of Helm Hammerhand. Very lengthy in just a couple of pages that you can find so much on it. And we could have kept going. Like we talked about multiple times in this podcast, there were moments where we just could have stopped there, continued on, with the oaths of
You
Sirion
could make a whole podcast
and
about those
Errol,
oaths.
which maybe we should honestly like that really got me intrigued now that we got into it. But yeah, any final thoughts on Helm Hammerhand or anything that we talked about tonight before we jump out?
Uh, not so much on what we talked about. I think we, no pun intended, beat a dead horse a little bit. We discussed a lot about a little, which is always fun to do. You can always do that with Tolkien.
Yeah,
But
yeah, for sure.
one thing I do want to mention is the Concerning Hobbits radio drama that Sam and I are a small part of. We're in episodes 2 and 3 of this first season. Just spoiler alert for you guys. So we're not in this first episode, and each episode's going to take a while to be released, but I think they're getting pretty close to being able to release this first episode. And so you can follow them. It is just Concerning Hobbits on Instagram, right? Is that
Redbook of Westmarch?
Is that what it is on Instagram? Okay.
Yeah. Find it either.
Yeah, feel free to DM either me or Sam if you want to follow them on Instagram to follow kind of the progress of this radio drama. We've seen behind the scenes. We know the scripts. We, like I said, Sam and I both have a small part where we get to bond together a little bit, which I think is absolutely awesome. The guys that are doing it, shout out to them. The work that they've put into this thing is insane. And it's a fan fiction. It is. I won't lie, but it is completely in the spirit of Tolkien, and just knowing the script and seeing the work that's gone into it, I cannot wait for the first episode. So I will be blasting that everywhere when it does come out.
Same.
Part of me wants to host like a Twitter Spaces and do a live listen to it, or a live stream of listening to it and chatting. I don't know if we'll see when it exactly comes out, but yeah, that's a long spiel about that, but please reach out to us if you want more information on when it's going to get released or where to find it when it does get released. It's the Up Talking Tolkien podcast, or the Unexpected podcast. I never know which one they actually go by, but it's an incredible group of people that have come together to create something pretty special.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it is fan fiction, but that also means that it's free of all the bullcrap. Like, really, it is.
Correct.
It's just a solid story centered around Samwise's daughter, and it's really cool to see. Eleanor is the one that it centers around. It's really cool to see kind of how the writers have put a little bit of their own lives into it. You can kind of tell also just so much of Tolkien's spirit, like you said, and it's one of those that just it's a there's some serious moments and there's some hard, like, sad moments. We'll be a part of that, obviously, but
there's a reason we're only around for episodes 2 and 3.
Yeah, right. but it is so cool to see. Just it literally puts you into the world of Tolkien again, and it's happy. Like, it's wholesome, I'll say.
Yes, very wholesome.
It's very, very wholesome. Like I said, free of all the bull crap. It maybe might ruffle some feathers just with how they portray some characters. I don't think it will really. It's just, again, so in the line of spirit. Like, if Seth and I can agree that this is something worth, like, supporting and backing, then it's probably pretty legit. So yeah, super stoked for that.
Yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the time has come for Gondor to call for aid, to light that beacon, break in the halls of Medicel, and shout, "Gondor calls for aid." Will you, Rohan, the AFA, the horse people, that sounded weird, people of the horse, will you guys respond? Will you answer? If you enjoyed the podcast, please light a beacon of your own by sharing with fellow friends and fans. Like, subscribe, leave us one of those 5-star reviews. Let us know what you're thinking. Send us an email to weckpodcast@gmail.com. Share your Tolkien story like David did a little while back.
Yep.
We'd love to be a part of this with a fellowship, and especially, again, if you're seeing War of the Rohirrim, which if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are, please send us your thoughts. I mean, we won't judge you. Well, we might judge you, but we will be very, very thankful to hear from you, and we will have a good conversation with you, and maybe even share some of your thoughts on our podcast here as well, if you're okay with that. So we just want to do this as a fellowship, like I mentioned. So until next time, we have no idea, like I said, where we'll be swept off to, when we'll be swept off to another podcast, but super thankful for you guys to step out on the road with us. And until next time, thank you for joining us for some well-earned comforts. We bid you a very fond farewell.